Good morning, boys and girls. This is going to be your lesson for Tuesday in reading, and we are actually moving back to our Wonders reading program, okay? So we are just going to continue on just like you were in the classroom. So we're going to do our reading lesson just like we would do normally on a Monday, but you guys got Monday off, so we're going to kind of squeeze Monday and Tuesday's lesson together. And this week, we're actually studying on, I don't know if you can read the essential question right up here, but it says, how is each event in history unique? Now, unique is a word we don't use very often in third grade. Unique means makes it special, makes it stand out from everything else. Like if I had a bunch of rose bushes that are pink, and in the middle of that rose bush I spot one red flower, that red flower is unique because it stands apart from those other flowers, okay? It stands differently because it's a different color. So we're going to look at some events that have happened in history and try to tell what's different, what makes them unique, and different from other events that have happened in the past. Now, before we start our lesson, we really need to make sure we understand the vocab that we're going to introduce this week. And I know we sent you home probably with your study guide, but I'm just going to go through our flashcards just like we were in class together, and I want us to kind of talk about what each word means. So our first word for this week, I hope you can see this. I'm going to step out of the light. I hope you can see that good. Our first word is agreeable. And agreeable means that it is something that is nice or pleasant. If I step outside and want to go outside with Lily Grace and play, I'm looking for agreeable weather. Okay, so that means I'm not wanting it to be stormy, not wanting it to be real bad windy. I want it to be pleasant, okay, if something is agreeable. It also can be used when you have a group of kids, like when we're in class together, and I say y'all are very agreeable with one another. It means you're being very nice, you're getting along, no fighting. Okay, so that word is agreeable. Our next word we're going to look at is appreciate. Appreciate is a word that I like to hear a lot in class. Appreciate means we are grateful for something that has happened. Means Thanksgiving is a wonderful time to kind of think of this word. Appreciate means you are glad and thankful for something you have. So that one we should kind of know and be familiar with. The next word is descendants. And I know some of you are probably thinking of a Disney movie. Not what we're talking about. We are talking about people who come from a particular ancestor, okay? And that's where they got that word, but we're not going to talk about that. Lily Grace would like to have that conversation. But we are talking about people who come from a particular ancestor, okay? So descendants are, if you were to think about your grandmother, okay? My grandmother's name was Donna, and I am one of Donna's descendants because I'm a grandchild of hers. My Lily Grace, my daughter, is also a descendant through her family tree, okay? So that's kind of what you've got to think of. Their descendants means they've gone down through their family tree, okay? The next word is pioneers. Now, pioneers are people who are among the first to explore something or to settle in a new land. Like when we think of pioneers, we kind of picture the big wagon, the covered wagons and things like that. And the reason you see those in a lot of our books, because they were the first ones to kind of travel across the country to settle new lands. And those are called pioneers. That's exactly what that is. They're the first to explore somewhere, okay? And then we have transportation. Transportation is any kind of means that can carry goods or people. There are different forms of transportation. We have like the wagon I just mentioned. Then that's not what we use today. Normally for your transportation that you might see would be cars or buses. We also have airplanes, things like that. We also have boats. So there are different forms of transportation. The next word is immigration. That is when you are leaving your country to live in another. When you have left one country to go to another, that is called immigration. Then we have vehicle, very similar to transportation. This is a means of transporting goods. Very similar. If I were to find two synonyms in our vocab words, remember synonym means same. Then I would pick these two. Vehicle and transportation would be two very good synonyms that I could look at together, two words that are very much the same. Boomed. Now, I know that boomed can be one of those words that is a sound word. This actually means that something has grown quickly, okay? Like when the pioneers all moved out west, there may not have been a lot of people there until they all settled the land, and then when everyone starts coming to them because they see that it's got good soil, or they see that it's going to be an effective move and can better their family, then the population will do what we call boom. It's where it grows really quickly, okay? That's why they call it boom. It's like, whew, all of a sudden it just grows really quick, okay? So we're going to look at these words a little bit more in our story. We're going to read our story just like we were in class together. And I want you to think about these definitions and make sure you understand these, because at the end of this video, you're actually going to go in and I want you to give me the definitions of our vocab words we have just studied, okay? I'm going to use them in the context, because remember, sometimes we might know a word, but when we see it, when we read it, we've got to make sure we understand what it means as we read, okay? So we're going to look at these words in our story, so I want you to follow along. I'm actually going to let it read to us, so you don't have to listen to me this whole video. I'm going to let the board do the reading for us, so I want you to track along. I hope you can see, but I'm going to zoom it in as much as I can, and I want you to at least listen and follow along, and we'll talk about the vocab if you have any spots that maybe you don't understand the word. I'll try to stop and think about where we might have some difficulty understanding, and we'll talk about it. So let's read the story.
Time for Kids, The Long Road to Oregon. In the spring of 1843, more than 800 pioneers began a journey from Independence, Missouri to Oregon City, Oregon. They had 120 wagons and 5,000 cattle. This was one of the first wagon trains to travel west on the Oregon Trail. Land of Promise. Life was very hard in Missouri in the 1800s. Bad weather caused crops to die. Businesses closed. As a result, many people could not find jobs. Americans wanted a more enjoyable life. They wanted to live in a place where the soil was richer and the weather was more agreeable and pleasant. The United States government was giving away free land to pioneers, so thousands of people traveled west to Oregon, a territory in the northwest part of the country. The Oregon Trail, Oregon City, Oregon Country, Mexican Territory, Unorganized Territory, Republic of Texas, Iowa, Independence, Missouri.
Okay, and I wanted us to stop right here. This is a really good spot for us to look at some of these vocab words. When you see a word in a text that you don't understand, or maybe you can't quite remember what that word is, sometimes they give you clues in the context or in the passage that you're reading, okay? And right here is a perfect example. If I go back in and read right here, it says the weather was more agreeable and pleasant. So I want you to look at that and see if you can find the synonym for agreeable. The synonym would be pleasant. And then sometimes they might put agreeable, comma, or pleasant, and the comma will kind of set off what the synonym is before you go back to the sentence. So always be sure that as a good reader, you stop and make sure you figure out. Don't just go over a word and go, I don't know what that means. That's not what good readers do. You want to stop and find a word that is a synonym or a word that is the same for you to study and look at, okay? Let's keep going.
Getting ready to go. Pioneers knew that emigration to Oregon would be difficult. The trip was more than 2,000 miles of dusty, bumpy trails and would take at least 5 months. The pioneers needed to be prepared. First, they gathered their cows and chickens. Then they packed many pounds of food, cooking pots, tools, and seeds. Covered wagons were the main form of transportation on the Oregon Trail. The wagons were stuffed with everything a family would need. There was little room for anything else. As a result, children left books, toys, and most of their clothes behind. A long, hard journey. Planning and packing took weeks. The first thing pioneer families did was hook a team of oxen up to their wagons. Oxen were dependable and strong and could pull the heavy vehicles. Next, the families joined other pioneer families. All the wagons traveling together formed a wagon train. The children and healthy adults walked. The sick or tired pioneers rode in the uncomfortable wagons. Dirty water, sickness, and fierce dust storms made the journey challenging. Bad weather often made the trail impassable. But the pioneers were determined. As a result, they finally reached their new home in Oregon. This reenactment shows a wagon train on the Oregon Trail.
Okay, so we are reading about, in case you have gotten kind of distracted or anything like that, I know we're at home trying to learn. We're reading about the Oregon Trail and the journey that these pioneers had to make. Remember, pioneer, someone who goes to settle in a new place, okay? And we have them immigrating, moving to a new spot, moving to a new place, and all that they can take with them is going to have to be in these wagons. Now, these wagons look pretty big. That looks pretty big, doesn't it? That's a pretty big wagon. Look how big that horse is. That's not a little bitty pony. It's a big horse. But now I want you to look. This would be everyone in your family. Think about who your family is. Now, with me, I'd have my husband and my little girl. But then I'd also want my parents to go with me because I love them and need them too. So I would take them with me. James might want to take his family with him. So we have our grandparents with us. Now, that's a lot of people going on this little ride just with our little family. But we also have to pack food for that many people. So inside their wagons, they've got to get their food. They're taking chickens. They're taking, let's go back up and read. It says first they would gather their cows and their chickens to take along. Then they had to pack many pounds of food, cooking pots, tools, and seeds. Remember, when they get to this new land that they are going to move to, it's not all ready for them. They're going to have to make a new life here. So everything they need has to be inside this wagon. Okay, so their entire life is in this wagon right now. On top of all these people. So if you were healthy and well and able, you didn't even get to ride in this wagon because it's filled with all of your belongings. You would be walking outside the wagon. Now, if you had family members that were older or family members who were sick or had gotten very tired from the journey, they would get to ride, but it wasn't going to be comfy, wasn't going to have a lot of pillows or anything like that because you're probably crammed in with all of your supplies. So this was when I look at this heading right here, it says a long, hard journey. That's exactly what they were going through, okay? It was a tough ride, and they dealt with it. It said dirty water, sickness, and fierce dust storms made the journey very challenging. Means it was very hard. Bad weather often made the trail impassable. Okay, now this is one of those words that I really want us to stop and look at because that is a big word. Impassable. This is one of those words where I need to break this word apart to figure out what it means. Able is my suffix at the end. It means you are able or you can do something. The root word, remember that root word that we build off of is pass. You know what it means to pass someone. If you're in a car and you pass them, you go around or get through. M means not. Think about impossible means it's not possible. So we have a place that is not able to pass through. That's what we're looking at, somewhere that they can't even pass through because of all of these problems, okay? So let's keep reading and see what happens.
A new life in Oregon. When the pioneers got to Oregon, they cleared land and built houses. Then they planted crops. As more immigrants arrived, towns grew. People opened stores and restaurants. Businesses boomed.
Boom.
The pioneers worked hard to make their new towns successful. They had found a better life. Many of the people who live in Oregon today are descendants of the brave pioneers who made the journey west from the 1840s to the 1880s. They appreciate their family members' hard work and courage, and they are grateful for the Oregon Trail. Learn your history. History is the study of people and events from the past. It's important to know our country's past. Learning about history helps us appreciate our country and the people who helped build it. One fun way to learn about history is by reading the stories of the brave people who lived it. You can read diaries of pioneers on the Oregon Trail or biographies of explorers. These can be more exciting and inspiring than a movie or a television show. You can still see parts of the original Oregon Trail today.
I love that picture. I think that's so cool that you can see, you can tell it was in the 1840s to 1880s based on our text. But this picture still shows where it's broken up the ground. It's really cool. Now, coming back to what we were studying, it says that the businesses boomed, okay? Because of all these people finally coming and arriving and towns growing, it boomed means that it didn't make a big noise. It means that it grew really quickly because of all those people coming in and helping the town to grow. And then it says down here, many of the people who live in Oregon today are descendants of the brave pioneers. Now remember, descendants means that these are like their grandchildren. It was their great-great-great-grandparents or their great-great-great-great-uncles and aunts who came and were actually the first pioneers to travel the Oregon Trail. They appreciate their family members' hard work and courage. And remember, they appreciate means that they show thanks. They're very thankful for what those family members did. Okay, let's go on with this next page and then we will finish up. Now, this says summarize. When we summarize, you tell the most important ideas and details in a text. Use details to help you summarize the long road to Oregon. Okay, now, summary is what we worked on right before Christmas. We talked about how summarizing means you tell me kind of what the main idea was, and then you give me some of those supporting details. Okay, that's why we studied first main idea and supporting details, because that's pretty much what your summary is. You don't always summarize just paragraphs. Normally we see summaries when we're talking about a bigger text because you're pretty much given main idea and supporting details. So let's look at what we read. It says, why did the pioneers leave Missouri to travel west? I want you to think about that. Why did they travel west? Try not to look down here. I'm going to block it. Don't look down here. Try to think about it. Why did they travel west? It says reread The Land of Promise on page 247 and then sort through the details. Decide which ones are most important and then summarize the text in your own words. So you could go back and listen to that. I know we are kind of on a time crunch, so we can't probably go and reread the whole thing. But I want to show you how we would summarize this. It says, I read that crops died, businesses closed, and people couldn't find jobs. So they were living a very hard life at the time. They got some free land. Remember, the government said that they were going to give them land if they would just come and settle this area. The weather and the soil would be better in Oregon. So hopefully, you know, back in this time, you can't just go to Dollar General and get you a can of soup. You got to grow what you're going to eat. And if they're having trouble with crops and finding jobs and things like that, then going to where they can grow more things and make their life better that would be an easy option that they feel like they should probably go to better their family. It says these key details can help me to summarize. Pioneers left Missouri because life was hard and they wanted a better life. That's a perfect summary. Now remember, summaries do not have to be a paragraph long. We don't need a ton. I just need you to use supporting details when we summarize, okay? Now, for your assignment today, I'm actually going to let you get on when you watch this video and you have finished. Under the video, there is a Google document. You're going to click on that document, and I went ahead and typed out your vocab words. I want you to fill in what the definition was for each word. If you struggle with the word, you can go back and watch this video. You can reread the story, or you can go to where I talked about just the definitions. Either way, you can rewind it wherever you want to go to find your definition. And then I also want you to turn that in to me, okay? Make sure, once you type it in, I'm going to show you what it looks like. Let me show you that. I think that'll help. When you go right here, you're going to see this. It's going to look just like this on your little Chromebooks, okay? When you open it. You're going to type right here. I'm going to click right beside agreeable, and I'm going to type in my definition for agreeable, what I think that word means. When I'm finished, you're going to go up here. Mine's different because I'm the host. I'm the one who actually made this document. Yours will say something like submit or turn in. And then it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to turn it in? Click yes. That's so that I get it back and I know you've completed your work, okay? That turns it straight into me. When you guys did your summaries, there were a couple who forgot to hit submit or turn in, and it's no big deal. I just want to make sure you know how to do it. Also, I need you to use your Chromebooks when you do this work. If you use tablets, sometimes there is, you don't have access to get into this and edit it unless you are on your Chromebook. Just like we do morning work from our Chromebook, you have to do this from your Chromebook too, okay? So make sure you're logged on, and when you get onto this and you're done, then you can get on your tablet if you want to do iExcel on your tablet or something like that. But for our reading assignment, when we have Google Docs like this, I really need you to log on and use your Chromebook. That's where a lot of us were having trouble. If you do still have trouble doing it from your Chromebook, you can always write it out and just send me a picture. I know a lot of you did that last week before Christmas. It's perfectly fine too, either way. I just got to have your definitions, and this will count for your attendance today, so make sure you do this and turn it in to me. I miss you all so much. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I love you guys, and I can't wait until you're back in the classroom with me. Bye-bye.